All right, guys, there was so much to write in this one that the video would have been way too long. So I have already written everything. I'm going to explain it out to you as we go so you don't have to see me writing it. All right, so let's go to number 7 first. On number 7, it says Pedro has 276 more hits than Ricky. Use substitution to solve the system of equations to find how many hits Pedro, P, and Ricky, R, have each. They give us these equations. I already know Pedro has R plus 276. So I'm going to replace uh, the P in P plus R equals 2,666 with R plus 267, or 76, excuse me. So as everyone see, I took P and substituted R plus 276 with it. Next, I'm going to combine my R's. R plus R is 2R plus 276 equals 2,666. I have to subtract 276 from this side, which means I'll subtract it from this side, and that will give me 2,390. Now I have to divide 2R by 2 to get R by itself. Whatever I divide from one side, I do the other. And that gives me 2,390 divided by 2. When I do that, I get 1,195. So R equals 1,195. R was how much Ricky did. So Ricky had that many hits. Now I can go back to my other equation, not the one I had before, the other one. And I can substitute R for 1,195. So you can see here, I'm taking R and substituting that number in. When I add these two numbers together, I get 1,471. So Pedro has 1,471 hits, and Ricky has 1,195 hits. I'm going to skip number 8. Number 9 is mine to do. In this one, we have the equation x plus 5y equals 0 and 25y equals negative 5x. I can find out what x is by just moving the y over. I have to subtract 5y from both sides, and x will equal negative 5y. So right over here, x equals negative 5y. Next, I'm going to, excuse me. Next, I'm going to take the other equation, and I'm going to substitute x for negative 5y. So you can see over here where there was an x. Now we have 25y equal to negative 5 times negative 5y. Negative 5 times negative 5y equals a positive 25y. Now we have 25y equals 25y, and that's always going to be true. So there are infinitely many solutions to this problem. I have number 11 next. Number 11 says, Chimp incorrectly says that the solution of these systems of equations will be x equals negative 9 and y equals negative 4. Let's check this out. First of all, I'm going to take this 11 equals y minus 5x. I brought it over here, and I'm going to move it around so I can find out what y is. To isolate y, I have to get rid of negative 5x. So I'll add 5x to it. Whatever I add to one side, I add to the other. And now I have 11 plus 5x equals y. I can rewrite this in linear form, and it's still going to be y equals 5x plus 11. So now, on my second formula, I'm going to take my 6x minus 2y, but I'm going to replace my y with 5x plus 11. I substituted y for 5x plus 11. And then remember, all that has to equal negative 6. Next, I'll distribute properties. We have negative 2 times 5, and that's negative 10. We have negative 2 times 11, which would be negative 22. Now I'm going to combine my like terms. I have 6x minus 10x. That's a negative 4x. I bring down my negative 22 equals negative 6, and that gives me my new equation. I have to isolate my variables, so I'm going to get rid of negative 22 by adding 22 to it. Whatever I add to one side, I add to the other. Now I have a positive 22 and a negative 6. That's going to give me 16. Next, I need to get rid of the negative 4 and isolate x by itself. So I'll divide negative 4 away. Whatever I divide from one side to the other. 16 divided by negative 4 is negative 4. So x has to be negative 4. Next, I'm going to go to the first equation that I started with, and I'm going to replace x with negative 4. So now I have 11 equals y minus 5, and in place of x, I'm going to put negative 4, because that's what we said x was. Negative 5 times negative 4 is positive 20. So now we have the new equation, 11 equals y plus 20. I've got to isolate my variables, so I'm going to subtract 20 from both sides. 11 minus 20 is negative 9, so y must be negative 9. So my correct solution is negative 4 is x, and negative 9 is y. What error might Tim have made? Tim might have mixed up x and y, obviously, right? Because x should have been negative 4, and y should have been negative 9. All right, going to number 13. We're going to use substitution to solve this system below. I already know what x is, so I'm going to use this equation and replace x with 8y minus 4. So you see over here, so 8y minus 4, and now I've added, let's see, 8y, and that will equal 6. Remember, x is 8y minus 4, right? And I added 8y equals 6 to it, because those were the numbers originally in there. I can combine like terms now. 8y plus 8y is 16y. Now I have 16y minus 4 equals 6. I've got to isolate my variables, so I'm going to add 4 to get rid of the negative 4. Whatever I add to one side, I do the other, and now I have 6 plus 4, and that's 10. And now I have 16y equals 10. To isolate my variable, I have to divide 16 from 16y. Whatever I divide from one side, I divide from the other. And that gives me 10 over 16. I could divide both of these by 2 and get 5 over 8. Or I could take 10 and divide it by 16 and get 0.625. Really, these are the same numbers. And now I can replace, remember, y is one of these numbers. I can replace y in my first problem with one of these. I'm going to choose the fraction. So now I have x equals 8y, and y we said was 5 over 8, and then minus 4. 8 times 5 is 40, so now I have x equals 40 over 8 minus 4. 40 divided by 8 is 5, so now I have x equals 5 minus 4. 5 minus 4 is 1, which means x has to be 1. So x is 1, and y is either 5 over 8, or if you wrote it as decimal, 0.625. All right, let's move down to number 15, which is my last one. This was a big one. I'm going to try to take a step-by-step with you. First, I'm going to get a drink of water and clear my throat. All right, let's continue. We got the members of the City Cultural Center have decided to put on a play once a night for a week. The auditorium holds 500 people. By selling tickets, the members would like to raise $2,050 every night to cover all the expenses. Let D represent the number of adult tickets sold at $6.50, and S represent the number of student tickets sold at $3.50. So remember, adults pay $6.50, and they represent D, so that'll be 6.50D. And students represent paying $3.50, so that's 3.50S represents the amount of money that we're going to make off students. Remember, we're hoping to raise $2,050, so 2,050 has to equal 6.50D plus 3.50S. Now I got my first equation. The next thing says, if all 500 seats are filled for a performance, how many of each type of ticket must have been sold for members to raise $2,050? Well, Remember, S represents the students and D represents the adults. So the 500 seats is going to be equal to D plus S, the number of adults and the number of students. Now I can go ahead and move this equation around so I know what S is. I'm going to subtract D from this side, which means I'll subtract D from this side. And that's going to give me 500 minus D equals S. Okay, remember, S over here, okay, is represented now by this. So we can take this first formula, and instead of having S here, we can put 500 minus D. So we're going to take this 2050 here. We're going to say it equals 6.50D plus 3.50. And instead of the S, we're going to put 500 minus D. Now, we got to distribute properties. So when we do 3.50 times 500 will give us 1,750. And 3.50 times negative D will give me negative 3.50D. And there's our new equation now. 2050 equals 6.50D plus 1,750 minus 3.50D. I'm going to combine like terms. I see that I have 6.50D minus 3.50D. You know, 6.50 minus 3.50 is 3. Okay, you can see that up here. 0 minus 0 is 0, 5 minus 5 is 0, 6 minus 5 is 3. So we have 3.00D. I can eliminate those zeros and just have 3D. And now we have our new equation. The 2050 comes down. Remember, we combine these terms to make 3D, and that's now we're adding it to 1,750. We never did anything to that. We got to bring it down. Now I can combine like terms. I see we have numbers on each side. We use the inverse operations. Whatever I add to one side, I'm going to subtract it away, as long as I'm willing to subtract the same amount from the other side. 2050 minus 1750 is 300. And now I have 300 equals 3D. When I divide 3 away from the D, I realize I'm going to have to divide 300 by 3, and that's 100. So there are 300 D. Now remember, D equal what? Adults. So there are 300 adults here. Now we can plug this in to our first problem here, because we know that there's 100 adults, right? So we can say that 500, right, that's the problem we had here, equals D. D we said was 100, so 500 equals 100 plus S. D plus S, so it's 100 plus S. I got to isolate S, so I will subtract 100 from both sides. 500 minus 100 is 400. There must have been 400 students. So the answer to A is 100 adults and 400 students. Now let's try B. At one performance, there were 3 times as many student tickets sold as adult tickets. So I can make the equation, since there were 3 times as many student tickets sold as adult tickets, that if I multiply 3 times D, it would equal the student tickets, right? So let's see. That gives me 3D equals S, right? If there were 3 times as many, then I have to multiply 3 times D to get S. Next, if there were 480 tickets sold at that performance, how much below the goal of 2050 did the ticket sales fall? So we can make 480 our total. Remember, students plus adults equal 480 people there. So now I can take, remember, S equals 3D. So I'm going to take the S here and replace it with 3D up here. So now I have 3D plus D equals 480. I can combine like terms. 3D plus D is 4D. And I have 4D equals 480. I'll be dividing 480 by 4. That means D equals 120, which tells me there were 120 adults there. Now I can go back to my original problem. I know that if 3D equals S, that 3 times 120 equals S. Remember, D was 120. 3 times 120 is 360, so there were 360 students there. Now we can go back to the ticket prices. Remember, students got charged $3.50, and there were 360 kids here. Adults got charged $6.50. There was 120 adults there. 650 times $3.50 equals 1,260. And 120 times 650 is 780. So when we add 1,260 plus 780, we get 2,040. Remember, they wanted to know if there were 480 tickets sold at the performance, how much below the goal of 2,050 did the ticket sales fall? So I can minus 2,050. I could take 2,040 from it. That tells me there's 10. Since that's money, that's $10. So they were $10 short of their goal. Heck, I would have loaned them that. Okay, so looks like we're all done with my homework, and it looks like you got to do yours. Good luck with that, and I'll see you in class.